get a good glance at this and help us stay as active as we can and as sane as we can throughout this next couple of months.
Yeah, I think the bigger part of this is more the mental stuff than anything else. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are.
I gotta be honest with you. So when I started working with Larlkyn, for some of you that don't know, I believe it was a year and a half ago, and we had him come to our office as well. We had you talk to all of our staff, and more of to really understand our body, understand ourselves, and understand how we can get through really having a much healthier life than what we've been having for the last little while. So now what I'm getting to is, so for myself, the number one problem that I've had for a very long time was my sleep patterns were really messed up. And I never really fully understood what that was doing to my life and what that was doing to the rest of my entire well-being. And then when you came in and you gave this very same pitch and your talk to me, it changed my life, because in all honesty, for the last, I would say, a year, we go to bed at a very normal time. So we're in bed by about 10:30, 11, we're asleep. Where before it would be 2 a.m., I'd be going to sleep and waking up at 8. And that was my life for a very, very, very long time.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a good change that was needed, and I really hope that a lot of you guys. I know we have about 19 people on now. We'll wait. It's 1 o'clock. We'll wait a couple minutes more. Are we able
Yeah.
to stream to Facebook as well, Crystal? This time, is it working now?
It's already on. I just
Okay,
finished it. Yeah, so
good stuff.
we are
Yeah.
live
So
on
So I did.
Facebook.
let
I
me know
did
if I
know.
can start my slide. But funny thing is, you touch on sleep. I think that's kind of like the biggest part that we kind of have to do now to protect our immune system.
Right.
That's the biggest tool that we can use to move the needle forward.
Yeah.
In your sleep. So
Yeah, it's a huge helpers for sure. So what I want to do, Larkin, I'm gonna share my screen for a second here, just so I can actually show our clients some of the things that I talked about last time as well, but what we have coming down the pipe, just to kind of reiterate it. So give me a quick second. Stop others. Yes. Okay. And I'm gonna jump onto my screen. All right. So for a lot of you that have been requested to have this page added onto your website, all you need to do is send an email to support@agentlocator.ca, and they will add the landing page directly onto your website, and it'll be available for you, whether you want to post it on your social media to your clients, or if you want to do an email blast. I can tell you that we've seen a bunch of email blasts being done onto this landing page for our clients. And it's doing incredibly well. I've talked to 6 clients so far that I know have sent this out, and they're creating a really, really great conversations with even past people that they have in their database for years now. And the conversation really spans on them really being curious what's going to happen to the house prices. And obviously the answer to that question right now is we don't know really what's going to happen to the house prices. It's just a matter of, hey, we'll keep you up to date, and we'll let you know. And as I have access to the MLS system, I'll make sure that I keep in very close contact with you to ensure that I let you know what's going on with the house prices. How do you post this on social media? It is so simple that it's literally copying the link that you have on your website. So when our support adds this to your website and you click on the link, it'll take you to a landing page like this that has your name on it. You are literally just taking that and then going to your Facebook and pasting that link into that Facebook. And hang on a second, it'll pull it up. Sometimes Facebook, I got to paste it twice. Fetching preview. And there it is. So it's literally that simple. You're just pasting that link and saying, hey, get registered and find out how COVID-19 is going to affect your house prices. So that's how you're going to post it to your Facebook page. And everybody that wants to do that, just shoot an email to support@agentlocator.ca, and they'll add that landing page on there for you. Onto this landing page, we are working on getting this landing page active as well, and you're going to request it through support in the same way. It isn't completed yet. But the moment it's completed, we're going to let you guys know through our social media. If you guys haven't already, join the Agent Locator clients group. So we have a Facebook group that's specific. So leave this page, specific to Agent Locator clients. I will post the URL here as well so that everybody can see it, all panelists and attendees. There we go. So if you're not a member yet, join that group. We have, I believe, over close to 2,000 members of it. So a lot of the things that we do, we post about it here. We stream our videos here. Anything else, I don't know if you guys have actually heard of this or not. I didn't mention it last time, but Google is having a COVID-19 response to small businesses where they're giving out, I believe, $340 million to people who have had ads running. All of the accounts that we currently manage are going to be included into this. We're getting more information from Google as we speak, so we can figure out really the full details. As I understand it so far, anybody who has had an account with Google through us for a year will be eligible to receive money from this. So the moment we know more information, we will let you guys know. And that's that. And we do a lot more updating on our Facebook group than anywhere else. So I will end it. Yeah.
Sorry, it looks like we have Maureen Blackstock. She has her hand up. Maureen, I'm going to... Oh, we got a couple people with their hands up. Do you guys want to talk, or do you guys want to put it in the chat?
Yeah, if you use the chat software, so there's a chat button. You'll be able to ask your question directly there. When you raise your hand and we add you into the chat, your camera will go on and you will be on here with us. So we want to make sure that we're all prepared for that, so that way you're not being added on. So if you want to ask your question inside of the chat, that will be the easiest way. So both Maureen and Kim, that would be the best way for you to kind of ask that question, if you don't mind. Awesome. Outside of that, if you guys, again, have questions, there is the chat. Can we actually demonstrate the chat option? When you are looking at your screen, okay, here's a question by Maureen. Am I correct that only Treb offers the solds, so Kingston board does not allow this access, correct? That is correct. So to answer your question, Maureen, what we do for Treb members is it doesn't talk, or sorry, what we do for non-Treb members is it does not talk about solds here on this landing page. It only talks about new listings that come out. So it will still work for all other boards. It's just that it's not going to send out sold listings. That's something that if you want to send manually to your clients, you could send manually to your clients for those boards that don't have it. Also, there are some boards like Calgary board and a few others are coming out with sold listings. We are looking at integrating the sold listings for those boards as well. And when that happens, these landing pages will start to send out sold listings as well. All right, we have a question. I put my link on Facebook and usually gives a thumbnail with a photo and isn't doing that with this link. Why is that? So Kim, if you noticed me doing it twice, so for some reason Facebook is glitching out a little bit here, where the first time you post the link, it doesn't put the thumbnail. So delete the whole thing and then paste it in again, and you will see that come up. Not sure if it's because there's a lot more people on Facebook these days because of we're all home and not a lot of work to do, but that might be the reason. I actually heard an interesting stat today. I read that Zoom typically has about 10 million users a day. They went from 10 million users to 200 million users a day, which is unbelievable growth. And I'm very happy to say they've been sustaining it from a load perspective. They really haven't had that many glitches, other than sometimes when we try to share it to Facebook, there's been problems there. But so far they have been holding it pretty good. So Kim, I hope that answers your question on that part. And if we don't have any other questions, yeah, that worked. Awesome, Kim. Very glad that you got that to work. So remember, if you post it to Facebook the first time, you may not see that come up, but delete it and post it again, it comes up the second time. Can't tell you why, but that's how it works. So let's go and switch over to Larlkyn. Unless, Crystal, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Do you want to just reiterate again about the other trainings that we have, and how can people currently find all the trainings that we currently have that are ongoing daily?
So we do have, so if you are again a member of our Facebook group, those are all posted. There is one article specifically for that.
Okay, so it's upcoming live webinars. So if we look at, for example, if I go to the Agent Locator clients, I see announcements, and then in the announcements we have a list of all the upcoming webinars, and then replays as well. So if you don't have the time to watch that webinar right away, you could watch the replay there. So that's awesome, very good. And so for those of you that haven't joined this group yet, just please join the group. I sent that link in the chat so you guys can get it. And the only prerequisite to this group is that you have to be an Agent Locator client. So that is all. If you're not an Agent Locator client yet, we don't have a group where non-clients meet at current time. I know that some of the people that are on this webinar could potentially be non-clients yet, because the link gets shared amongst a bunch of people. Yeah, so anyway, share the link again. Absolutely, I can share the link again. Here we go. There it is. I hope you guys get it that time there.
And for that webinar registration, you just have to register once, and because it's a recurring event, you're going to be registered for all the upcoming webinars. So it'll send you that reminder the day before and an hour before the event as well.
Okay, great. And is this joined with ours as well, the one that you and I do? It's always kind of the same one?
Nope. So that one, so the one I just posted is the one for like leveraging your services, so website, CRM, that sort of thing.
Okay.
This one here, and I'll post it, this is the COVID talk. Obviously, you guys are in here if you're on the webinar, but that would be the one for the COVID, the one what we're doing right now.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So there are two separate registration links. The COVID one that you guys are on right now, these are the ones that Crystal and I do every Tuesday and Thursday. And then there is another one that is around that essentially is how to work your CRM, advanced CRM lessons, other website techniques, SEO, Facebook marketing, a bunch of different stuff. So join that one as well. Crystal posted a link to that one. Once you join that one, you'll be subscribed to all of them, and you'll get updates to let you know, here, this one is coming up if you want to come on and be a member of it. And that's it. So
and as you guys can see, there's replays. So if you guys miss it in the actual announcement, Alma is great enough to be posting all the replays. So if you guys missed it, you can watch it.
Email the links, these links. So we will, do we have a list of all the people that are on the?
Yes, I believe I can do an attendee report. I believe I can do that.
So yeah, if we could do an attendee report and we can do a blast, maybe do a BCC blast to everybody with the links, we will do that for you guys so you guys can get those links as well. But outside of that, as I've mentioned last time in my, this is our COVID-19 Stay Sane chat. This is Tuesday and Thursday. We're supposed to stay sane. And as I mentioned last time in our talk, one of the things that's greatly helped me is removing and deleting the news app off of my iPhone. So that is something that you guys should do if you haven't done already, just so that, I'm not saying don't listen to the news at all. I'm saying that it doesn't help us to know and to get an update every time something major happens in the world, because there's a lot of major things happening right now, and it just really offsets our mind in the wrong direction. Stay away from news completely in the morning as much as you possibly can, because you don't want to start off your day with complete negativity. We are involved in this. There's nothing we can do. There's only certain things that we can control in our life right now, and I want to be able to control those things so that I can actually have a much better day. And then let's get Larlkyn on so that he can help us go through and figure out what other things we can change in our life that are going to help us stay sane. So Larlkyn, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and stop. Where's my screen? Stop share. And Larlkyn will take over now.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
Can you? See, I don't see you guys though. Can you see me?
Yeah. We see you. Are you on your iPad or?
No, I'm on my computer. I'm on my laptop. I want to see that screen though. Give me a second. I don't know why I'm not showing up on.
Once you share your screen, while you're doing that, actually, let me introduce you to everybody as well.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
And let me get your website up as well. Here, hang on a second. Holistics, and let me share. Are you gonna share, or should I share the screen real quick, just so I can?
Let me see if I do this, for some reason that video is not showing up on my end. I'm not seeing myself, but maybe that's okay. Do I have, if there's any questions coming up, are they coming up from the chat, or are they going to be?
What we'll do is, if questions come up on the chat, we'll tell you what they are. So we'll help you out with it so that you're seeing it from that perspective. Okay. So you haven't shared your screen yet. Let me share the screen for a quick second.
The screen that. Okay.
So I just shared the screen real quick so that I can show everybody. So Larlkyn is Quanta Holistics. And Larlkyn, why don't you kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've done, and who you are, so that people know you.
Yeah, so just quickly, like a quick summary. Basically, what I do is I kind of help people. Well, I'm basically like a guide that helps people how to kind of like be healthy, right? So the gist of it is really like, a lot of the information on how to eat healthy, you can obtain it at like whatever, Google. But most of the time, information is really not enough. And it's like, some people, what they really need is the accountability part. So basically, like, that's what I do. I kind of do a babysitting service for clients who needs to be on point because they just can't get their discipline done. And I use systems and structures and teach them how to kind of like apply those so that I really don't want to be babysitting them for the rest of my life, right? So I just want to kind of teach them how to kind of survive on their own. That's basically this is what I do. So
that's awesome. And one of the nice things, I've worked with Larlkyn in the past, and one of the nice things is that Larlkyn is going to be able to share with us some of the things that we're going to be able to do and actually execute on that's going to help change our lives dramatically. And then for some of those that honestly need that extra push and need the accountability aspect, Larlkyn is that is something that he offers, and if you guys want, he can definitely help you guys out with that. But he will be sharing with us specific sets of instructions that we'll be able to follow. They're going to help us, be better people and help us in a general sense with our mindset. So, Larlkyn, I'll stop sharing screen now. Are you able to then take it over? And I know you have some slides that you want to share with us.
Yeah, let me just start. Okay, so so can I start now?
Yeah, if you have your slides, you just have to share the screens. Okay, good.
Are you seeing it or no?
No, I don't. Crystal, do you see it?
Nope.
Let me see something. So let me share the screen. Share screen. So here we go. Let me double click that.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah.
And then I'm gonna do the slide. I'm gonna hit play. All right. Awesome. Cool. So you guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a quick intro. Today's slide is we're going to touch on like being resilient. You can't have a pandemic come in and then all of a sudden like you're wiped out, right? Like, so like, you want to build like really like a buffer of stress, like whatever that stress is, right? Like right now, what we're facing is like, as you can see, like our healthcare system doesn't have that buffer. Like it doesn't have the resiliency. You just look at New York and you look at Italy. They're being like bombarded by like, whatever, these people like dying, right? So and if you look at like what COVID has done to like everybody in the whole world, that's really like kind of like a macrocosm of like what's happening to us at an individual level. Really, like, our approach for most people is like, whatever, I can go to bed late, eat like crap, because nothing's happening until when you're like 60 or 70. You're like all of a sudden you're diabetic or whatever. So suddenly now you have to change your lifestyle. That's basically the approach of like everybody. And it's no fault. That's just human nature, right? Mm-hmm. No one's really taught us how to be preventative. It's all very reactive. And COVID is teaching us that lesson. It's like when you go to war, you can't just build a bunch of planes and warships right in split second. You have to build up that buffer and have that practice of always, working out and eating healthy so that when shit happens, you're okay, right?
Absolutely. So your email actually, Larlkyn sends an email every Sunday, and it's a very motivational email. And this email actually triggered me to kind of actually reach out to Larlkyn as well. I'll read out part of it, Larlkyn. So he says, your body is designed to handle stress. Watching the news about COVID-19 is deflating. Finding ways to evaluate your game during the lockdown periods is exciting. And when you're stressed, you will overeat. It's hardwired. So that's something that it's really hard. Anytime that we have stress, it's, for a lot of us, it's hardwired that we start overeating. And then we see the posts on Facebook constantly, I've gained an extra number of pounds, and it's something that stress is a signal, you said, that is to your body that it's not safe, and your affinity for calorie dense food goes up.
Right. Yeah.
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 Very interesting.
It's also like, understanding how things work, like, like gravity, for instance, like, you jump off a 10-foot building. If you're 5 years old or like, 10 years old, you're going to hurt yourself. Right. Like, so understanding certain principles is key. And that's one of the main things with the body. It's like when you are stressed out, it's not a function of like, oh, it's a character flaw, you're not a good person. It's no, when you're stressed out, your body just wants to eat, period. So the question is it really the fault of the food, or is it like the system that you have in your life that's not set up to deal with that stress? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
that's very interesting. Very
so
interesting.
And that's why it's good to build the idea of resilience. It's like whatever comes your way, you're able to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're able to like just shrug it off, whatever, bring it on.
Right.
Your attitude really is about let's bring it on, instead of like, oh my God, here we go again. It's a different mindset, right?
Right.
So yeah, attitude is important. Like, like take advantage of like kind of like the situation we're in, instead of like being bored and having nothing to do. Approach it as if like you're restarting your career from scratch again, or like finding things that you want to do that you don't have time to do. With kind of like technology, for instance, if you look at Zoom technology, you just said there's like 200, I don't know how many million users.
So they went from 10 million to 200 million. Yep.
Yeah. So from 10 million to 200 million, and yet Zoom is still functioning. Like, think about that, the amount of bandwidth that the software has to use. Like, I know like Netflix 2-3 days ago, they said, they sent everybody a letter saying they're gonna like lower down the quality of the stream because the bandwidth is getting killed.
Right.
Like Netflix, I don't know, it's not, I don't know how they're gonna do it, but Zoom, for some reason, they're still okay. If you look at technology, look at Skype. Skype was way ahead of Zoom before Zoom came out, but Skype is still the same Skype. Like, they had like a 5-10 year lead. They could have been Zoom by now, but they didn't, right? So you can look at like observe things and how they evolve. People are comfortable with being complacent, and nothing happens when you're complacent, right? So you can just see the environment. So the other thing that like, in terms of like mindset is really being grateful for the situation you're in. Yes, it's gonna suck that we can't go outside and work and whatever. But you look at the third world countries who are like really the population density is so high. Their living area is like basically like 5-in-1. Like, you got the bathroom, the kitchen, living room, dining room, and the bedroom all in one spot. And they're being told to quarantine.
Right.
We're like nowhere compared to those situations, right? So in fact, we're probably like living in royalty compared to them. So like just being grateful for what we have is like one of the biggest important pieces in terms of going through this whatever pandemic.
Yeah.
So what to do, right? Like, you just look around. The medical system really is taxed. It's been taxed before even the pandemic showed up. Like, there's a lot of people who are already sick, and they're just, kind of like going through life, like just not really 100%. They're just kind of like surviving. They're not really thriving, right? So patient goes see a doctor. Doctor says it's okay because you're like within the normal range of whatever that biomarker is, and they keep going. And what you have to understand is like the medical system is not really set up to be preventative. It's really set up to be reactive. You have to know that. Like, that's the game that's out there, and you need to kind of know the rules of the game so you can at least kind of like bend the rules a bit to your favor, right? So knowing that information, that you know, the doctor, their hands are tied, they see about 80 patients a day. There's no way that they can help you, but you can help yourself. They're not in a situation to. Sorry,
and last time we actually had a chat about this. It was interesting. I think it was diabetes, or I can't remember what it was that you mentioned. What you have the ability to actually make better through changing your food intake and what you eat makes it a lot easier for you to get through that. And sometimes people have gotten off of pills. What was that that you were talking about? It wasn't diabetes.
So for people who have issues with blood sugar regulation, so meaning like their blood sugar in their body is just like constantly high,
right?
Body has lost its ability to utilize sugar, so they become insulin resistant. So when you do your blood work, there's 3 biomarkers that you check, right? So your fasting glucose, your fasting insulin, and your HbA1c. Now, if you've been going to your doctor every year, you can kind of like see a pattern. It's either you're getting better or you're getting worse. And these numbers kind of tell you where you're headed. And doctors don't really kind of like talk to you about that, really. They don't really kind of like want to have a discussion because it's a bit tricky discussion. But in general, like, you know, like if you're fasting glucose, really ideally you want it to be between 4.3 and 4.6. But in general recommendation guideline here in Canada, I think fasting glucose, it's like 5 and above, right? So if you're going to the doctor, it's 5, it's good. And then 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, it's still good. But like, you know, the cutoff for pre-diabetes is 5.6. So you're only like 0.6 off from 5 to become pre-diabetic. But until you're 5.6, then the doctor tells you that something's wrong. But if you've been kind of like diligent in watching where things are, you can kind of see that you're falling off a cliff, right? So you don't
and you have the ability to curve that by food. So basically changing your food intake, you have the ability to curve that. And then that's definitely something that it's what we put into ourselves that's really causing a lot of the harm. And there's been a lot of shows that talk about, you know, how much sugar there is in certain foods, and why it would be best that we avoid it. So I just wanted to kind of mention that part because it was very interesting to see, and I know people personally who've actually gone through the process of being helped by changing their entire food intake, and then going completely healthy and being even taken off pills to a certain degree, which was really incredible to see. The biggest problem that doctors have, I mean, a doctor could go to 100 patients and say, hey, all you guys, you're in this problem, you have to change your entire food intake, which means you have to change your life. Out of those 100 people, they're going to have at least 80, 90. They're never going to do that. They're not going to change their life because that's just not going to happen. So it's a lot easier to prescribe a pill that says, here, if you take this pill, you're going to be okay and you're going to live, because it's a lot easier for people to take that pill rather than change their entire lifestyle and change the food intake and food pattern. So let's get back to your presentation, because I wouldn't want to whirb off. I know we don't have a ton of time with a lot of people that are on.
Yeah, I'll breeze through that tangent. It's the same thing with being like sort of observing social distancing, right? With the pandemic, it's like, yeah, social distancing sucks. Buying groceries, washing your hands, wearing gloves, wearing masks, all that stuff sucks. But you kind of have to do it to avoid getting the disease, right? And there's still a lot of people who don't want to do it, and they're gonna get heavily fined. Right. I mean, like, you know, all these steps are all behavioral changes, and which again, information is one piece of the puzzle, but a lot of it's kind of like the incentives or the punishment that comes in from making that behavior stick.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like, so what's happening in terms of like the situation with our health? It's like we've kind of like moved the goalposts a bit closer to feel like that we're winning. Like a good example of that is basically dress sizes, right? Like, so a client of mine a few years ago who used to be a medium now has to buy an extra small, but she's the same size. She didn't gain weight, right? So we're like labeling things so that people can feel better, but that the approach is almost like counter sort of productive, because you're telling people that they're healthy, but when they're not. And that's kind of like what's happening in the environment. So like, how do you step up, right? So now it's kind of like on you. Like, no one else is gonna like really be looking after your health other than you at home. right? So the biggest thing that you need to do is really like prioritize your sleep, like, you know, like sleep at least 8 hours a day, because that's the biggest tool that could help you avoid being infected with COVID. Because if you don't have your sleep, you don't have resilience, period. It doesn't almost matter how much you exercise or like how healthy you eat. If you can't recover, you're done. And the only way you can recover is sleep, period. Right?
So it's very interesting that, you know, I watch a lot of these videos from some really popular doctors online to talk about some of the things that are very important, especially in times where our stress levels are very high, and sleep is the #1 thing that comes up, that we have to be able to sleep. And it's hard because especially we're a lot more anxious at nights. We may be waking up a lot more in the middle of the night. We're probably not in our deep sleeps as much as we could be. Or should be, as the shock settles in of what's happening and our entire life gets flipped upside down. Those are all shocks that really happen to our internal body, but we need to go back to trying to figure out how do we make sure that we have good night of sleep. And that's obviously, even in your Larlkyn, in your #1 thing is sleep. So that's really great that you have that there.
Yeah, for me personally, like the you know, when you're thinking about like these things like sleep, nutrition, and exercise, in terms of behavior change, what you want to do is not use your willpower to kind of like, you don't want to use willpower to go through it. You want to have kind of like a system, like kind of like it's like a system will be like brushing your teeth before you go to bed. You don't, it's automatic. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to use your willpower to think
it's
about
muscle memory. Yeah, it just becomes something. Yeah, it's part of your habit. So it's like a habit. When you build up a habit, and that part of the habit is that. And what's interesting, I read a book that talks about willpower. So willpower is like a muscle. The throughout the day, the longer we use willpower to make decisions throughout the entire day, the more that muscle is actually worn out. So by the end of the day, it's actually the most worn out. So if we're using willpower to put ourselves to sleep at the end of the day, it's not going to happen. And if we're using willpower to ensure that we don't eat that meal, it's not going to happen because it's worn out. In this book, what's funny is this book talks about the reason why most people cheat on their spouses after work is because they've used up most of their willpower throughout the day, that by the end of the day, they have less willpower to actually not make that dumb decision of what they would do. So it's really interesting that as well, that you're saying that willpower, obviously, if we're using willpower to put ourselves into that perspective, that it's not a good thing. So thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. For willpower, you really want to save it when it really matters, right? And at the end of the day, your brain basically like has your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain, which is responsible for decision making, and the back part of the brain is the impulse, right? So when you are like not sleeping and you're not eating well, you're always going to be on the impulse side of your brain. So basically your decision making is going to be very impulsive, you know, like cheating on spouses, eating bad food. Those things are going to be very attractive for you to want to do and participate on, because you don't have the prefrontal cortex to say, hey, listen, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. There's nothing consequential about it. It's all driven on impulse, right? Like teenagers.
Right.
Teenagers they're very impulsive, right? And that's why you are a parent for a reason. You want to keep them at home because you are their prefrontal cortex, because their impulse is the drive is so strong and you can't overcome it. Okay. So sleep is a big part of that, right? And the second part is like the nutrition, right? Like especially now when with this COVID stuff, you know, you basically, you know, whatever you put in your body has to be nutritional. Like it cannot be empty calories, right? I think the virus is kind of smart. It's kind of like, you think about it, the people who are affected by the virus have pre-existing conditions like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, or they have like immune system dysfunction. It's almost like the virus is telling us, listen, if you don't sleep well, if you don't eat well, we're gonna be knocking at your door and you're gonna have to figure out how to fight us. That's basically what the virus is saying. You know, like, so you can see like, how come kids who are younger than 10, they're not being affected by it, you know? And they're saying like, you know, teenagers, whatever, they're invisible, but they're not. There's like teens and preteens dying now.
Yeah.
right? So it's not a function of age, but it's a function of like robustness of your system, right?
Okay.
It's like a computer software. You install a software and then you turn it on, all these like viruses come in, and then you can't even work the software anymore. Like the software has not built in these protective mechanisms.
It was a funny comment that I saw on Facebook today. It said, this version of 2020 is been very bad. It's got a virus. Can we uninstall and reinstall it again? That was an interesting thing. So we have a question that Michelle asked on Facebook, and her question is, have been taking melatonin to help with sleep.
Melatonin.
Melatonin to help with sleep. How much is too much?
I think melatonin, you don't want to go too much. I think 2 milligrams or 2.5 at most, because if you take too much of it, your body will stop producing melatonin. So you have to be careful with melatonin. You know, the best way to get melatonin, you know how your body is basically, this is how your body is designed. You eat when there's daylight and you sleep when it's dark, period. That's just how the body works. You just obey that law and you'll be healthy. But we do the opposite, right? So
it's very interesting, because he said to me, this is, and I remember this the first time that I met him. He said to me, when the sun goes down, the fork goes down. So that was, and I still remember that.
Absolutely. And that's all based on your circadian rhythm, right? Like, so your circadian rhythm basically dictates how your body works. Like, you know, when the sun is up, that's when you want to eat. You want to put your calories in your system. That's when your body is, like, metabolism is like all geared up, ready to go. But when you're eating before bed and your body's like in the middle of a shutdown, you're like, where's this food gonna go? It's not gonna go anywhere. You're like going straight to bed. How is that food gonna get metabolized? And on top of that, you got like insulin up, you got your melatonin up, and these two hormones are like talking to each other. It's like, why are you here? Why are you here? I can't work. So you have trouble sleeping. Your heart rate is high while you're sleeping. You get like unproductive sleep. So it's like a whole, like, you know, whatever, kind of like it's like a whole ball of like issues going down the road if you sort of disobey that.
So it's interesting for those of you that, I mean, when it comes to melatonin specifically, or for those I think if we try eating only during the day and not eating at night, that you're saying that by itself is going to help alleviate some of these issues that are out there. So if we try that for a couple of weeks, now, just out of curiosity, how soon will somebody actually see a difference? So let's say I decide today is going to be the day that I'm going to start practicing this, which is I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to eat anymore after sun goes down, and I'm only going to eat during the night, and I'm going to try to go to bed at a certain time. How soon do some of these changes will I actually see the effects on my own life and my ability to cope with everything?
It all depends on the person's, again, it comes down to your body's ability to be robust, right?
Right.
Like if you have like a history of like not sleeping well for over long periods of time, and then your health is not really that great, it might take a while for your body to kind of adapt, because it all depends on how
bad it might be to begin with.
How bad it might be, right? So if you're coming from like the opposite spectrum where your health is really bad, like you might have to wait a bit to get that.
Makes sense.
But if you're already in a healthy state, you know, like you did something bad, your recovery is just a lot
faster. Yeah.
So it comes down to recovery.
Yeah, and I know you have. We're going to go back to your slide. Michelle's just asked one more question. So as the days get longer, you stay up longer?
As the days in general, like you will. You know, you're probably like will function better with less sleep as the days get longer. Just a function of your circadian rhythm. Like the birds start chirping at 5, you wake up, you feel good. In general, like that happens. Yeah, again, like, you know, in the wintertime when you're supposed to sleep longer, no one does. So they're all dead tired, right? So the way that the people move, they kind of like, it's very rigid. It's like they want to stay up late every day from like, you know, like summer, fall, winter, and spring. But really, like the it's seasonal, right? Just kind of like you eat a lot of fruits in the summer, you back off the fruits in the winter, because evolutionarily, there's not a lot of fruits in the winter time. The same thing with sleep. Like, you know, when there's longer dark cycles, you just sleep more because that's what your body is sort of set up to. And then conversely, in the summer, when there's more daylight, you're you're gonna be okay sleeping 5, 6, 7 hours versus like 9, 10, 11, or during the winter time, right?
Of course. So, any tips on helping kids sleep better? This is a question from Colleen.
Yeah, with the kids, sleeping routine is a big part. Also, like keeping their rooms as dark as possible, like, you know, once you get them in, because light is a trigger for them to be awake, right? So no TV, no iPad, like after dinner, right? Get them ready, like, you know, just get them ready to wind down a bit. Now in the summer it's harder, in the winter it's easier, but again, like the light is a trigger. So if your light is like so bright with a lot of like these fluorescent lights everywhere, like change that to like kind of like an incandescent or just a dimmer where you're able to dim down the light.
So if we can't dim down lights, start dimming down lights at a time where you maybe an hour before you start wanting the kids to kind of wind down, and maybe especially now if we want the kids, let's say, go to bed by 9 p.m., that by 8 we create a pattern that says, you know what, at 8 o'clock we're going to shut down all electronics, we're going to play a game. Maybe that's a board game together, and that should help them start creating that, maybe the amount of light they're being exposed to start being lowered. Is that something that
Yeah, when it comes to sleep, like all you have to think about is like the light, because like your eyes are basically kind of like the camera or the sensor that tells your body when to start producing melatonin. So for kids, I mean, they're healthier, they're a bit more robust, so they can adjust fairly quick. So the moment you can kind of like get them in the room with like almost like, I don't know, like a candle in there or like a bit darker, they can go to bed pretty fast. But if they go to bed with an iPhone and an iPad, good luck. Like there's no way they're gonna be able to sleep with that. Right?
It's it's definitely a lot harder. And then it's a hard habit that we have all established and our kids have as well. And it is,
I mean,
oh God.
I know it's hard. The other ways that you could do is like some apps or software on your phone have an app called FLux or Iris, where you can like install.
What is it called?
What is it called? FLux, F.lux.
F.lux, okay.
Yeah, so we can install an app like an FLux where the app basically sort of changes the setting of the brightness on your phone. Like it'll take out the light part of the phone and it'll make it look like it's orangey or red. So that, if you know, but ideally it's best not to have the devices. But if the devices are going to be there, at least install those software.
Use these things. Okay, so F.lux. I just messaged everybody in the group there with that name. So good stuff. I appreciate it.
The other ones are kind of like getting kids kind of like these like red tint glasses, like Felix Gray or Gunner. Those ones, like, you know, will help block out the blue light. Basically, it's the blue light that you need to avoid because blue light is kind of like sunlight, right? So if you're having sunlight blasting into your eyes, there's no way you're going to be sleeping anytime soon.
Right. You know, okay. So, awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Let's we'll move back to your slide. Sorry for all the questions, the people that are asking.
Sorry. Yeah. So movement is key. Like again, like, you know, just walk around the neighborhood. You don't have to do any crazy exercises. Moving, get some fresh air and sunlight. You know, those are really the three pillars that you kind of have to do. I mean, it's like you don't have to buy this stuff. This is like you just kind of have to do it, right? So, again, the one key thing that I keep wanting to emphasize is really try and limit risky behaviors, right? So smoking is a big kind of like factor in terms of like how COVID, if you do get COVID and you're a smoker, you're gonna be like out of luck. Like you're gonna be it's gonna be very hard for you to survive COVID if you're a smoker. Eating like high sugary stuff, again, like, you know, high sugar lowers your immune function, and if you have a lower immune function, then you're more susceptible to the virus, right? So things like that, just trying to avoid it, right? And again, like, you know, in terms of like health, like, you know, as parents, and I'm sure a lot of people are watching, our parents who have kids, sometimes we kind of like overextend ourselves at the kind of like we sacrifice our health to make sure everything runs well in the house. But it's almost like the opposite. Like you kind of have to prioritize your own health first, right? Just like when the plane's going down, they don't say put the mask on to the passenger beside you. It's like put the mask on yourself. So that means like you gotta prioritize your sleep. You gotta prioritize what you put in your body. You know,
so if you're trying to change your kids, you got to change yourself first before you can change anybody else. And the bad behaviors and bad patterns that we create only trickle down into those that are around us. So that's, yeah.
Right, right. And also like kids, like they don't want to be told what to do. They model the behaviors of the parents. So if you are like telling your kid to go to bed early and then you're up watching Netflix, or you're telling your kids to not eat this, but then you're eating it like when they're not there. Like it's kind of like kids are smart. They know that stuff. So you gotta have to do it together as a group, right? Like you can't say one thing and do the other. Like it doesn't work like that, right? So like, you know, now it's like kind of like a test to see like how good you guys are as a unit in the family.
Right. So, and we're definitely spending a lot more time together now. So it's if there's any of a good time that you could possibly make some changes in your life, in your kids' life, this might be that time, because we have a lot more control over where they go, what they eat, and what they do throughout the day.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So here's an approach that I like to use. I got this from Dr. Peter Attia. Very smart guy. And this is kind of like the approach, right? Like when it comes to food and nutrition, it's like, imagine like in Star Wars, you got the Death Star. The Death Star is kind of like the planet that want to like kind of shoot down all the other planets. And this Death Star has a gravitational pull. Like I call it the standard American diet. And the standard American diet basically is like made up of a bunch of foods that are very hyper palatable, right? Like you cannot escape the gravitational pull of that standard American diet, like the French fries, the burgers, all that stuff. Like it's so delicious. If you just can't have one. Like the chips, you got to finish the whole bag. Like no one can escape that gravitational pull. So these are the strategies, right? Like, so to pull yourself away from that standard American diet, the first thing you want to do is think about like time restriction, right? So basically you want to kind of like think about when you're going to eat. So basically, for instance, like a 16/8 intermittent fast, you're basically eating from like 12 p.m. lunch, and then you're finishing dinner by 8 p.m. So that's kind of like a 8-hour window of eating with a 16-hour window of fasting. Like I think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so it's like an intermittent fast, right? So is that what it's called?
Yeah, so you're restricting kind of like the time, the
of when you can eat.
When you can eat, but you're not restricting anything else. You can eat whatever you want, but you're just restricting the time of when you eat. So personally, like I practice 24. So I fast for 20 hours and I eat within the 4-hour period. So I eat between 4 p.m. and like 7 p.m. That's kind of like my window, right? Or 6 p.m. And most people, if you don't kind of like haven't done some sort of intermittent fasting, just kind of like think about like when you start eating, like, you know, so you wake up, you eat something, that right off the bat starts the clock. So if it's 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. that you're eating and you're closing that window at 9 p.m., think about like how big that feeding window is. It's like from 7 p.m. to, so 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., that's 12 hours, right? So the 12 hours of feeding, and then there's 12 hours of like fasting. Now, if you're snacking after dinner and then the window closes at 9, that's like a big feeding window, right? So if you're like constantly sending a signal to your body to eat, then how is it gonna burn stuff?
Right.
Like you're always gonna be in like storage mode, right?
So what you're saying, I just want to make sure, and I want to ask a very direct question here. Let's say that I choose to eat the same way that I've been eating so far, that I don't want to change what I'm eating, but I'm just going to change when I eat. Yes. That alone will have an effect and will have an impact on my well-being as well. So I can say from, you know, if I will choose not to have breakfast, I might avoid that. So I'm going to eat from 12 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock, and I'll eat the same number of meals. It's just going to be during that time. That alone will be able to help us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That alone will help a lot of people. Yeah.
Interesting.
And also if you marry that timing of when you eat to the circadian rhythm, which we talked about from the previous slide, which is the sleep. If you kind of marry those two concepts, really, like, you know, like eat when it's light and close the window when it's dark. If you marry that with the time part, then it all makes sense, right? So if you want to like think about how your body works, metabolism wise, it's the strongest during the day. So if you want to like think about like eating your biggest meal, really you want to have the biggest meal midday, because that's when your metabolism is strongest. So from a practical standpoint, like, you know, if you're skipping breakfast and you're having lunch, lunch for you will be the biggest meal. And then like as you approach dinner, because it's closer to nighttime, get body's shutting down, dinner will be a bit on the lighter side, like, you know, mostly salad and vegetables.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so this is if we're on the diet side where we're not only changing the time we're eating, we're changing what we're eating. If we have the ability to also change that.
Right. So the second one that's again, like, you know, the second sort of level really is to change the diet. Right? This is where people kind of argue what diet you eat, but basically, like, you know, if you can take away carbohydrates and just go high protein, or you can take away fat and go high carb. But this is kind of where you play around with what type of diet you want to eat, right? So if you marry, so the diet part is, it's kind of like, you know, again, for people who have issues with, like, say, diabetes, or they're pre-diabetic, then the diet part will make a bit more difference for them, because they are kind of like taking out, like, say, the carbohydrates that contribute to high blood glucose, right? So. But
so
in
what do you
general,
think is the best diet for somebody who is pre-diabetic or has diabetes? What is the best type of diet for them?
I think it's hard to say what the best diet, but like from the way, from looking at this, I think like going low carb definitely helps.
Okay.
But again,
so then,
like, low carb will help, but it's not, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like you have to find a way to measure your response to food using like a glucose monitor and stuff.
Right. Okay. And then for a general person, non-diabetic, non-issue, just general people, is there a diet that you say works better for others, or what is there a diet that you prefer really for just regular people?
Well, in general, like what you want to do is really avoid refined carbohydrates and just eat whatever you want. Like, you know, so you think about the idea of what refined carbohydrates are, right? What is the idea of refining a carbohydrate? So for instance, flour. Flour is a refined carbohydrate. How do they get flour? They have to harvest the wheat, put it in the factory, pound that wheat into a bunch of powder, put it together into a flour. Like the bagels, the pasta, the bread, those are refined carbohydrates, right? So if you avoid refined carbohydrates and just eat food that grew from the ground, you're gonna be good. You don't even have to worry about all this stuff. But the environment is really like so saturated with refined carbohydrates. They make it so cheap. They make it so delicious, and it's so hard to escape it. And that's why it's like everybody's a bit kind of like a bit sick or, you know, overweight.
Right. So potato chips.
Yeah, that's processed food.
They're good. They're good. Oh, I thought potato chip comes from the ground. I mean.
Yeah, potatoes come from the ground, but it's been like processed. Yeah.
What about popcorn then?
I know the other part with this, like, how do you know if the food is kind of like tampered with, right? Like, if you eat something and you can't help yourself but eat more, there's something wrong with that food. Because like you don't have that reaction with broccoli, Brussels sprouts, or cauliflower, or even steak. Like, you just eat it and you're good. But when it comes to like junk food, the processed food, they put all these chemicals that, again, like kind of changes our brain, and then we have no self-control. We're like back to the impulse way.
The one thing that's really helped me quite a bit is controlling how fast I eat. So I have been my entire life one of the fastest eaters in the world. I remember in high school for lunchtime, I have my sandwich out and it's done, it's gone. And I did that for a very long time because the faster I ate it, the faster I can play. And, you know, that was the concept. And I translated that into my adult life as well. But one of the number one things that I've changed, it's helped quite a bit in a general perspective, even when I'm eating really crap things like chips, is that I slow it down. And my body by itself starts to realize, hey, wait a second, you're full, you don't need it anymore. But when I'm just stuffing myself constantly, the body doesn't have time to react to tell me, wait a second, you need to stop because you're full. So that's one thing that's helped me quite a bit. I just wanted to kind of mention that part.
Eating slowly, because like, again, like, you know, when you're eating like processed foods, right, like the potato chips, all the junk food, for some reason, like you're eating, the way you eat is just a bit faster because you want more of it. But if you're eating like real food, like a roast chicken with broccoli and salad, I don't know if you're gonna be eating the same rate as you eat like burgers and fries. You know, like if you time yourself, like you eat steak and Brussels sprouts, I don't know if you're gonna be like whizzing through that like you would with a burger and fries. I don't know. I think there's something to do with how you are wired, your brain chemistry and stuff. It's like
we're all a little different.
More apart, you know, from the junk food.
Awesome.
So anyway, on the further out really is kind of like the calorie restriction part, right? So like that's when people go on a 4-day fast, 3 to 5 day fasting, because you know at that point people are really sick or they're like insulin like resistant. Their foot is about to be chopped off because they're super diabetic. They can't get their sugars lowered. Then that's when they have to kind of do extreme measures, right? But in general, for everyday people, like, you know, if you can practice eating when you're supposed to be eating and avoiding like refined carbohydrates and processed food, you're good. You don't have to worry about what diet you need to do. That's it.
Okay.
Really
so to kind of help out and reiterate some of the things that we can implement immediately that should be fairly easy for us to implement, is to create a time of when we eat. So if you even follow that 16-8, 16 hours we're not eating, and through an 8-hour period we're eating, and you get to choose what that 8-hour period is. So whether you want it to be from the morning till mid-afternoon, or you go from 12 to 8, which is a little bit easier maybe because you get to eat before you go to bed and you're not going to bed completely starving. It might be easier for you to take that and accommodate. And if you can, to go 18-6, where 18 hours you don't eat and 6 hours you eat, that is even better. So, but starting somewhere that alone will be able to help us out. And then for the next step, for those that have the ability and want to take it to another level, to adjust your diet as well, to figure out to make sure you stay away from carbohydrates. So at least one thing, you can start with one thing by eating what you currently eat, but just eat it in that 8-hour period. So this is one thing that I think, if we can't implement this, it should be fairly easy to implement that part of it at least, because we're not telling you don't eat and starve yourself and don't eat anything. It's actually, there's one solution in play that we can eat whatever we've been eating so far, but just eat it during that 8-hour period. So thank you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Go on.
So really the approach is like, you know, given the information that you now know, like you can have the best intentions of like, okay, I'm going to wake up and do this. Like, you know, you gotta have to know that there's this thing called the Murphy's Law, right? Anything that could go wrong will go wrong. It doesn't matter like how well you plan things, but if you don't have kind of like a system in place where you don't account for things that could disrupt your routine, you're never gonna be successful, right? Just like in business and stuff, like you anticipate, you know, you don't anticipate a pandemic, but you anticipate certain things, but you know, your business can still flourish. But like how you set up your life is the same thing as you would set up a business, right? Like, you know, you have the best intentions to eat well, go to bed early and do all these things, but things will come up and you have to find a way to overcome those and still march straight through, right? So,
right. Yeah.
So, and then again, a lot of this time, use this period as a way to find out what's optimal for you. So if you're practicing kind of like an intermittent fast of like, you know, having breakfast at 8 a.m., you know, do an experiment, start tracking, write things down, take a picture on your phone, or create an album. I want to have Cheerios one day in the morning. I want to know how I feel like 2 hours later. Am I going to crash? Am I going to get super hungry? But the next day, I'm going to just do bagel by itself and cream cheese, whatever, or orange juice and oatmeal. See which one is like the optimal kind of like food for you. And
right.
you know, you don't want to be using a lot of bandwidth trying to figure out what food you want to eat when you wake up. You kind of want to, again, have a system ready to go. If for me, like, you know, I like to have my coffee and that's it, I'm good to go. Right? Some people, they want to have different things. So
full meal,
right? So plan it out. Some people, like, they wake up, they're not hungry, they can get to work. Like really trying to limit the amount of bandwidth that you have to put in onto something that can be addressed by having a system in place, right? So, and then like, again, like accountability is a big part of this stuff, right? So if you don't have skin in the game, you're not going to be able to do this stuff. Like, you know, so having someone kind of like watch you, having your kids call you on things like, oh, mommy, daddy, I thought you said you're going to do this, but why are you doing that? Or having your spouse be there, kind of like helping you, making sure you stay on track. The accountability part really is kind of like what sort of cements all these things together. Like all this information is all good, but if you don't have someone kind of like telling you that you have to do certain things, it's going to be hard. And accountability is not for forever. It's just there in the beginning to set the behavior.
Right.
So
create the habit that you need.
It's kind of like a kid trying to brush your teeth. Like in the first week or so, you want to kind of like encourage your kid to brush your teeth. But over time, it's automatic. You don't have to keep telling her to brush her teeth. Right? Eventually, the kid does it on its own. But that's what accountability is for.
The accountability part is in all honesty one of the number one reasons why people really truly make a change. We know this for a few reasons. I'll go into our when we started doing accountability for our own clients to make sure that when we put somebody on a lead generation platform and we train them how to use it and we just let them go. Compared to when we put them on the lead generation platform and then we have accountability where we actually do check-ins on a weekly basis, sending you a video saying, John, we'll let you know you've done these things great. You haven't done these things. If you don't know how to do them, please let us know. We saw a huge spike in retention ratios and people actually doing well, and a lot more positive stories from real estate agents doing well with internet leads. So it's a huge part, even in our own business from what we see. But I think in general life and anything you're looking to change, you real estate agents of all people know this because they actually have accountability coaches. Accountability coaches are people that are there to help make sure that you do what you said you're going to do. Because we all say we're going to do these things, but unless we actually make sure that somebody's there, hey, checking have you done this or not, it's a lot harder. And this actually even Larlkyn. So Larlkyn, one of the things that I've done with him is accountability training, where essentially he is teaching me and making sure that I do the things that he's telling me to do. So you want to actually talk a little about that? I see you have that here now, the tools and apps that are for accountability. Yeah, go ahead.
So quickly, my approach with my clients is very similar. Like when Aldo first came in on board, he gave me kind of like an idea of like what he's doing and what he wants to do, like his goals. So, you know, for the first 2 weeks, I basically told Aldo, listen, if you tell me that you're doing these things, I need to see it. So the first thing you do is like, okay, take a picture of your food every time you eat it, because I really want to see if you're really eating healthy. So that's the accountability part. And then the second thing is like going on a scale. So you don't have to get me, but like you can use certain tools that could act as your accountability partners. So, you know, for people who need to lose weight, getting a scale is important. Like, you know, you weigh yourself every day. It's a way to kind of check to see if you're going on the right track.
So I want to actually make a point on this actually, because Larlkyn, had I not bought this scale, so this scale that he's talking about here, I actually bought for myself. And what's really cool with this scale is that every time I step on the scale, it records the exact weight for myself. It knows and even records all this like biometric data about like my body, body fat, the percentage of water the body has, and a bunch of other things. And it sends him an update on his phone to show him where my weight is. So here's what was really cool about Larlkyn and I when we first started. I would take pictures of the foods that I ate and when I ate them, and I would send it to him. And the next morning, I stepped on a scale every single morning, and I remember the first time that he caught me lying because of what I ate. So he says to me, listen, Otto, if this is going to work, we need to be very honest with each other. There is no way in the world that your body weight can be this much if you ate what you told me you ate last night. I'm like, that mother. He caught me in a complete lie because it was true. I snacked on stuff during the night. And then he placed me, this is what's interesting, he placed me on this glucose monitor. So number 3 is a glucose monitor that I wore on myself. So what would happen is that every time I would actually eat, it would show in my blood sugar to show the spike of when I ate that and he would know 100% saying that meal that you sent me should have not represented a spike in your blood sugar level like it did that time. So that was, to me, that was an extreme awakening, extreme, like, hey, I'm lying to myself here, and I'm lying to my coach who's trying to help me get through what I need to get through. But it's really great that he set up this process and this program to ensure that I don't cheat on myself. So my hat off goes to you for that, Larkin. That was an incredible thing that you put together. So yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I really wanted to make clients be aware, and it's not a judgment of their character, but it's really important for everybody to understand how food really affects their body, or even their health, right? And these are kind of like, even for myself, I wear the glucose monitor maybe 5-6 times a year because I'm human, I'm not a robot. I like to have ice cream. I sometimes like to eat cake, but I'm the type of person who kind of like understands the implications of things. Like your high blood glucose goes up. I understand the physiological damage that's happening to me. So for me, the accountability for me is like keeping my glucose nice and steady.
Right.
You know? So
there was a question for the, I forgot, Renpho, I believe, RENPHO,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, RENPHO. Yeah, you can get it at Amazon. It's like $40, like super cheap. You know, like it's pretty accurate. Like I've done like a DEXA scan. I've compared kind of like the numbers to it. It's not bad. It's on par. So the scale, like, you know, taking pictures of your food on an app, and, you know, glucose sensor. The glucose sensor is a bit more complicated because you kind of have to understand what the numbers mean and when you want to have it high, when you want to have it low. That's a bit more complex. But in general, like, you know, at the end of the day, like accountability is just having kind of like a system of tools to help you stay on track.
Right.
Whatever the tool is, if it's something like a diary or a journal, whatever it is that will make it work.
Of course.
Right. So.
The scale, the Renpho scale, just to actually talk a little bit about it. I mean, you can find it on Amazon. What's really cool with it is the fact that it gets you create your own profile, and you can have your kids as well. Your kids can have a profile. Your spouses can have a profile as well. And then when each of them steps on a scale, you have the app open, and then you just specify who's that person that just stepped on the scale, and it shows you graphs how they have been throughout the entire time. And records a lot more than just body weight because it has the sensors that does a bunch of other stuff that records. So it's actually one of the best investments that I've ever made in my health and understanding my own body. And what's also pretty cool is when I have people come over, I have them step on a scale as a guest so you can actually see their profile and see their not only body weight, but water ratio and all this other stuff. So it's very, very cool scale that you guys can get on Amazon.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, so these are the tools, again, like these are just tools that you kind of use to just establish behavior, right? So a lot of times it's not like you're going to do this forever for the rest of your life.
Of course.
That's not the point. The point is like just to get the behavior change going. And if you start to feel good, you start to lose weight, you start to feel better, you'd be like, oh my God, why did I not do this earlier? You know, like, and then chances are you're probably never going to go back to your old self of like eating badly, right?
Yeah.
But you know, use this time that we're now in to self-experiment, you know, so.
Definitely might be an easier way, using a guide, go ahead.
Yeah, so like, if using a guide, like, you know, if you're collecting data, it's important to kind of like have, you know, like, context and experience with data. And this is like the trial and error. They talk about like kind of like the 10,000 hour rule in terms of skill acquisition. You have to treat like being healthy as a form of skill acquisition, because we're at this point now where we are not healthy. And to develop healthy habits, or like having a skill to being healthy, requires you to eat healthy, requires you to get your sleep, requires you to exercise, right? And there's going to be a lot of different iterations of how you go about that individually, because someone who works in the office, or someone who flies a lot, or someone who sits a lot is going to be different for everybody. And you got to find out what works for you. And that's kind of like where all this thing kind of comes into play, right? So
awesome.
Like data. So, and then, so this is kind of like what I use when it comes to decision making. I kind of use a matrix, like, you know, where like you got outcome on the y-axis and decision on the x-axis. On there's 4 quadrants, right? So basically, like, you know, good decision and bad outcome. You can make a good decision and you still get a bad outcome. So what's an example? You eat like very healthy, you go to bed early, you go on a scale, and your scale, the weight goes up for some reason. You got a bad outcome. Does that mean like what you did was wrong? No, it wasn't. It was just like, that's life. 80% of life falls into that quadrant, right? And then, like, you know, and then there's, oh, sorry. And then there's this, the bad decision, bad outcome. Like, you know, you ate terrible, you didn't go to sleep, and like you just feel like shit the next day, and nothing good happens out of that day. That's just, you know, that's, I call it like, you know, Darwinism, like, you know, the Darwin Awards, when people do dumb things and they just get killed by nature because the nature doesn't want them to kind of like procreate and have their gene passed on to the next thing. So that's Darwinism, right? That's what happens. And the next one really is like the dangerous one is like, it's like you do a good outcome, bad decision, right? So you make a bad decision. Sorry, that matrix might be there, but so basically you have a bad process, right? Bad process, but you get like a good outcome.
You make a bad decision, but you get a good outcome out of it, and you expect the same thing to happen over and over again, which the chance of the bad decision leading to a good outcome is rare.
Right. So like so the good, so the bad outcome, so the bad decision and good outcome is kind of like you driving with no seatbelt. Like you drive with no seatbelt from here to Mississauga and come back. You didn't get caught by a cop. That was like a bad decision, but the outcome was good because you didn't get caught. But that does not mean like you should keep on driving without a seatbelt.
Makes sense.
So it's the same thing with what comes to health. Like, you know, like you can like a lot of my clients like are kind of like in the beginning stages where they didn't go to sleep, they eat like crap, they go on a scale, and for some reason the scale, like they lost weight. So it's like, oh my God, like this is amazing. I could do this. No, it's not, right? So this is kind of like a good, and then like, you know, the good outcome, good decision, that's very hard to get. That's almost impossible in life, right? Like, to get the good outcome, good decision. Most of life kind of happens between the good decision, bad outcome. Right. And then like, awesome. You know, and then the practice really is to kind of stay in that quadrant and avoid the bad decision, you know, good outcome quadrant. Awesome. So as a summary, right, like, you know, sleep, avoid the standard American diet, be accountable, have systems, and have a good attitude. You know, this is kind of like how you can build resilience and overcome the pandemic, because it will be over. Like, the storm's not going to be there forever. Right?
Absolutely, and that's definitely the key things that we can do to help us. And I hope that a lot of you have gotten at least something out of this with respect to what we can change in our life, whether it be with sleep or whether it be with the 8-hour eating pattern. So Larlkyn, for anybody who actually wants to reach out to you and you know, wants to maybe get your help with all of this, there's your info. So we got the email, we got the website, the LinkedIn profile, and anybody who wishes to reach out to Larlkyn and has the you know, resources that they to have him help them out. He has been a tremendous help to me, and honestly, I can say that not only have I changed, but my entire life and family has changed with the help of Larlkyn, with some of the changes that were implemented. And you absolutely could achieve some of this stuff even by doing it on your own, and having your spouse help you out as well, or having you guys help each other out to make that change. And for those of you that don't have that support and need a little bit more, Larlkyn is always there for you as well. We are going to end it at that. If you guys have any questions, you could always ask them. Larlkyn email, his email there is as well. He's been very helpful, and you know, even answering questions that you guys, if you have other questions, do you mind if people shoot you an email, Larlkyn, if they have a question?
Go ahead. follow, like on my Instagram, I put a lot of like glucose stuff. So if they want to kind of see kind of like what I'm up to, like I don't really post about myself, but I kind of like post about like glucose levels with the CGM, kind of like I do a lot of self-experimentation. So they can kind of have a bit of a snapshot of like, you know, what I do.
Great.
The other thing I wanted to say before we end, there's an old English proverb that says, a calm sea doesn't make a good sailor, right? Like, so think about it. If you have a ship that's sailing in calm seas, like the sailors there are not going to be that good. Like, you know, so basically it's like there's the storm or the challenges that happens in your life that makes you a better person, like skill-wise and mentally-wise. So if you can kind of like use the environment that we're in not right now with the pandemic, use it as a challenge to kind of like step up when the challenge is over. Where are you going to come out of this, right? Like you're going to be a butterfly or you're going to be like nothing. So
yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Larkin. I really appreciate it, your time and you being here. Crystal, anything else from you to add, or we're good?
No, we just have the last Facebook question, which is recommendation for the blood glucose monitor.
Oh, yeah, the recommendation, you can go to, so that glucose monitor is like made by Abbott. It's called Freestyle Libre.
Okay.
You can order it online, or you can go to Shoppers Drug Mart to go to Abbott.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Larkin, thank you again very much. Really appreciate your time, and all of you have yourself a great day, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.